Welcome back, everyone, to Stories That Shouldn't Be Told. Tonight's episode is about a night home alone, a knock at the door, and the realization that the people outside weren't here to steal. Every story is a warning. Sometimes danger doesn't want your things, it wants you. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and share it with anyone who enjoys a good scare. And tell me in the comments, what's the most unsettling thing that's ever happened to you while home alone? Your support keeps the stories alive. Now, let's begin. I was 17 and home alone for the weekend while my parents visited my grandparents. Earlier that day, I'd noticed a dark sedan parked across the street for hours, unusual since none of our neighbors owned that car. Around 4 o'clock, we'd gotten a weird phone call where someone asked if the boy was home, then hung up when I asked who was calling. It was Saturday night around 9:30 when I heard 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the front door. I was in the basement gaming with my headset on and almost missed it. I looked through the peephole and saw a middle-aged woman holding a clipboard. She smiled and said she was doing a neighborhood safety check. When I cracked the door open with the chain attached, she asked, "Do your parents work late shifts? Are you here alone often?" Then she wanted to know, "Do you lock the upstairs windows at night? What about that basement door?" Something about her questions felt wrong, too personal, too specific. When I said I wasn't comfortable answering while my parents weren't home, her smile faltered. She pressed on, asking, "What time do they usually come home? Do they check on you during the night?" When I told her to come back when my parents were home, her demeanor completely changed. She stepped closer and said in a threatening voice, "I really need these answers tonight. How many doors lead outside? Do you sleep on the first floor or upstairs?" Her questions were getting more invasive and frightening. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. When I started closing the door, she stuck her foot in the gap to stop me. She was still smiling, but her eyes were cold and calculating. I pushed hard to get the door closed and locked. 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps on our back deck. I crept to a basement window and saw a figure with a flashlight moving around our patio, checking if the sliding door was locked. It was the same woman, now prowling around my backyard. I locked every door and window, turned off most lights, and went back to the basement. For the next hour, I kept seeing movement outside, near the back door, by the side gate, testing the basement windows. Every time I thought they'd left, that flashlight would appear somewhere else. Around midnight, everything went quiet. I dozed off on the basement couch, but woke up to the sound of someone trying to open the sliding door upstairs. I crept halfway up the stairs and saw the door was open about 6 inches. Someone was squeezing their arm through the gap, trying to reach the security bar. That's when I lost it. I yelled as loud as I could that I was calling the police and that there were cameras recording everything. But instead of running away, I heard the door slide open completely. The security bar had been moved somehow. My heart stopped as I realized they were actually inside the house. I grabbed my phone to call for help, but when I pressed the power button, nothing happened. The screen was completely black. My phone was dead. In all the stress and chaos, I'd forgotten that I hadn't plugged it in to charge after gaming all day. I frantically tried to remember where my parents kept the landline phone, but we'd gotten rid of it months ago when we switched to cell phones only. I could hear footsteps moving around upstairs, slow and deliberate. They were inside my house, and I had no way to call for help. I quietly moved to the far corner of the basement, where there was a small window that led to the side yard. My plan was to break it if I had to and escape that way, but then I heard something that made my blood run cold. A second set of footsteps. There were 2 people in my house now. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to stay as quiet as possible while they moved around upstairs. I could hear them talking in hushed voices, but couldn't make out what they were saying. One set of footsteps went toward the front of the house while the other stayed in the kitchen area. They were splitting up, probably to search the house more efficiently. Then I heard them opening doors, closets, bedrooms, the bathroom. They were looking for something or someone. The footsteps in the kitchen stopped right above me. I held my breath, trying not to make any sound. Then I heard the worst sound possible, the basement door handle turning slowly. Someone was testing whether it was locked, and it wasn't. The door creaked open, and a beam of flashlight light swept across the basement ceiling. I crouched lower behind some storage boxes, gripping a baseball bat from my dad's workbench. The footsteps started coming down the stairs, one step at a time, pausing on each step like they were listening for any movement. Halfway down, the person called out in a low voice, "I know someone's down here. We saw the lights go out. Just come out, and this will be easier for everyone." The voice was calm and cold, which somehow made it even more terrifying than if they'd been yelling. I stayed completely silent, barely breathing. The flashlight beam continued sweeping around the basement, getting closer to where I was hiding. Then I heard the other person upstairs call down, "Find him?" That's when I realized they weren't just burglars, they were specifically looking for me. The survey woman had probably seen me through the door earlier and knew someone was home alone. This was planned. The person on the stairs took another step down, then another. I could see the flashlight beam reflecting off the basement walls, getting brighter as they got closer. I gripped the bat tighter, knowing I might have to defend myself. I quietly moved from behind the boxes to a different hiding spot near my dad's workbench. The person continued down the stairs, now sweeping the flashlight where I had just been. When the beam hit the empty space behind the boxes, I heard them whisper under their breath, "He's down here somewhere." They spent what felt like forever searching every corner of the basement while I crouched in the shadows, terrified they would find me. At one point, the flashlight beam passed just inches from where I was hiding, and I was sure they'd spotted me. But somehow they missed me and eventually went back upstairs. After what felt like an eternity, I heard them go back upstairs and start talking again. Then I made a decision that probably saved my life. I was going to make a run for it through the basement window. I quietly moved a chair over to reach the small window and managed to open it just enough to squeeze through. But as I was climbing out, one of them must have heard me. I heard shouting from inside the house and saw flashlight beams moving frantically. I sprinted across the yard toward my neighbor's house, the cold night air burning my lungs and stinging my face. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over my own footsteps. The gravel in the driveway crunched loudly beneath my feet, and I could hear my own ragged breathing as I ran faster than I'd ever run in my life. Behind me, I could hear them burst out of my house and start chasing after me. The sound of their footsteps on the gravel was getting closer. I could feel the cold sweat on my back and my legs burning from the sprint. When I reached the Johnsons' front porch and started pounding on their door, screaming for help, I turned around and saw that my pursuers had vanished completely. They just disappeared into the darkness the moment they saw I was at the neighbor's house. It was like they'd never been there at all. When Mr. Johnson opened the door and called the police, the officers found that nothing had been stolen from our house. Not the expensive TV, not my dad's laptop that was sitting right on the kitchen counter, not even the cash in my mum's purse. They hadn't touched any of it, even though there were valuable items in plain sight. The police told me this was the most disturbing part. They weren't here to steal. They were specifically looking for me. The fake survey, the hours of prowling around the house, breaking in when they knew I was alone. It had all been planned around finding me. The officer said I was extremely lucky to have escaped when I did, and that my quick thinking probably prevented something much worse from happening. When my parents got home the next day, we ended up getting additional security cameras and motion-activated lights after that incident. I still wonder what would have happened if they'd caught me, and why they were so insistent to catch me. I never take being home alone for granted anymore. Sometimes I wake at night convinced I hear that same slow knock on the door. And that was the end of tonight's story. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that should never be told. Your support keeps these nightmares alive, and there are many more waiting. Until next time, sleep well if you can.